Thunderball is a 1965 spy film and the fourth in the James Bond series produced by Eon Productions, starring Sean Connery as the fictional MI6 agent James Bond. It is an adaptation of the 1961 novel of the same name by Ian Fleming, which in turn was based on the original screenplay by Jack Whittingham, devised from the story conceived by Kevin McClory, Whittingham and Fleming. It was the third and final Bond film to be directed by Terence Young, with a screenplay by Richard Maibaum and John Hopkins. The film follows Bond's mission to find two NATO atomic bombs stolen by Spectre, which holds the world for ransom of £100 million in diamonds under threat to destroy an unspecified metropolis in either the United Kingdom or the United States, later revealed to be Miami. The search leads Bond to the Bahamas, where he encounters Emilio Largo, the card-playing eye-patch-wearing Spectre No. 2. Backed by CIA agent Felix Leiter and Largo's mistress, Domino Derval, Bond's search culminates in an underwater battle with Largo's henchmen. The film's complex production comprised of 4 different units, and about a quarter of the film comprises underwater scenes. Thunderball was the first Bond film shot in widescreen Panavision and the first to have a running time of over 2 hours. Although planned by Bond film series producers Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman as the first entry in the franchise, Thunderball was associated with a legal dispute in 1961 when former Fleming collaborators McClory and Whittingham sued him shortly after the 1961 publication of the novel, claiming he based it upon the screenplay the trio had written for the cinematic translation of James Bond. The lawsuit was settled out of court, and Broccoli and Saltzman, fearing a rival McClory film, allowed him to retain certain screen rights to the novel's plot and characters, and for McClory to receive a sole producer credit for the film. Broccoli and Saltzman instead served as executive producers. The film was exceptionally successful. Its worldwide box office receipts of $141.2 million exceeded not only that of every other one of its predecessors, but that of every one of the 5 Bond films that followed it. Thunderball remains the most financially successful film of the series in North America when adjusted for ticket price inflation. In 1966, John Steers won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, and BAFTA-nominated production designer Ken Adam for an award. Some critics and viewers praised the film and branded it a welcome addition to the series, while others found the aquatic action repetitious and the film's length excessive. In 1983, Warner Brothers released a second film adaptation of the novel under the title Never Say Never Again, with McClory as an executive producer. The cast includes Sean Connery as James Bond, an MI6 agent assigned to retrieve 2 stolen nuclear weapons. Claudine Auger as Domino, a voice dubbed by Nicky van der Zyl. Dominic Domino Derval is Largo's mistress. In early drafts of the screenplay, Domino's name was Dometti Palazzi. With Claudia Auger was cast as Domino, the name was changed to Derval to reflect her nationality, as Claudine, of course, was French. The character's wardrobe reflects her name, as she is usually dressed in black and or white. Adolfo Celi as Emilio Largo, voice dubbed by Robert Retty. Spectre's No. 2, he creates a scheme to steal 2 atomic bombs. Luciana Paluzzi as Fiona Volpe, a Spectre assassin who becomes Francois Derval's mistress to kill and replace him with his double, and later helps with Largo's plot in Nassau. Rick Van Natter as Felix Leiter, a CIA agent who helps Bond. Bernard Lee as M, head of MI6. Desmond Llewellyn as Q, MI6 quartermaster. He supplies Bond with multi-purpose vehicles and gadgets useful for the latter's missions. And Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny, M's secretary. Broccoli's original choice for the role of Domino Derval was Julie Christie, following her performance in Billy Liar in 1963. Upon meeting her personally, he was disappointed and turned his attentions towards Raquel Welch after seeing her on the cover of the October 1964 issue of Life. Welch was hired by Richard Zancook of the 20th Century Fox to appear in the film Fantastic Voyage the same year instead. Faye Dunaway was also considered for the role and came close to signing for the part. Saltzman and Broccoli auditioned an extensive list of relatively unknown European actresses and models, including former Miss Italy, Maria Grazia Bucchello. Eventually, former Miss France, Claudine Auger, was cast, and the script was rewritten to make her character French rather than Italian, although her lines were dubbed in the final cut by Nicky van der Zyl, who had also voiced several previous Bond girls. Nevertheless, director Young cast her once again in his next film, Triple Cross, in 1966. Guy Hamilton was invited to direct, but considered himself worn out and creatively drained after the production of Goldfinger. Terence Young, the director of the first 2 Bond films, returned to the series. Coincidentally, when Saltzman invited him to direct Dr. No, Young expressed interest in directing adaptations of Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and Thunderball. Young said, Thunderball was filmed at the right time, considering that if it was the first film in the series on the low budget, because Dr. No of course only cost $1 million, it would have not yielded good results. Filming took place initially in Paris, then moved to the Château d'Arnette near Dreux in France, before filming commenced in the Bahamas. After the filming in the Bahamas was complete, filming returned to Pinewood Studios, Buckinghamshire, and Silverstone Racing Circuit for the car chase scene. After he read the script, Connery realized the risk of the sequence with the sharks in Largo's pool and assisted the production designer Ken Adam build a plexiglass partition inside the pool. The barrier was not a fixed structure, so when one of the sharks managed to pass through it, Connery fled the pool seconds away from attack. Thunderball was the third James Bond score composed by John Barry after From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. The original title song was entitled Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, taken from Italian journalist who in 1962 dubbed Agent 007 as Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. The title theme was written by Barry and Leslie Brukos. The song was originally recorded by Shirley Bassey, but it was realised late in the day that the track was too short for the needed titles. As Bassey was unavailable, it was later re-recorded by Dionne Warwick with a longer instrumental and introduction. Her version was not released until the 1990s. The song was removed from the title credits after producers Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were worried that the theme song to a James Bond film would not work well if the song did not have the title of the film in its lyrics. Barry then teamed up with lyricist Don Black and wrote Thunderball, which was sung by Tom Jones, who, according to the Bond production legend, fainted in the recording booth when singing the song's final note. Jones said of it, "I closed my eyes and I held the note for so long, and when I opened my eyes, the room was spinning." Country musician Johnny Cash also submitted a song to Eon Productions titled Thunderball, but it went unused. Now, out of all of Sean Connery's fantastic Bond films, I think Thunderball probably is the weakest entry. Thunderball takes forever to get started and has too many long underwater sequences during which it is impossible to tell what is actually going on. Nevertheless, don't get me wrong, it's still enjoyable in many ways and still plays up to the usual James Bond tropes. Sean Connery once again delivers another superb performance here as Bond, and the role almost became second nature for him as he was just so good at pulling off the secret agent. For me, by this film, he was projecting a huge amount of panache and confidence in the role, almost if he had become Bond himself. There's no real standout moments or iconic scenes within this film. It's not like Goldfinger, Dr. No and From Russia with Love, which all had moments that will just stand out for you forever. Now, even though I criticize the underwater sequences, they are particularly groundbreaking, especially when you take into account of when the movie was actually made. The underwater choreography is well done and the scenes are clearly shot. It's just that maybe they feel a bit too long and very repetitive. This is one of those films where I definitely feel some more editing was needed, particularly during the film's climax. You really do feel the 2-hour length. What makes this film though work is Sean Connery's enduring charm. Thunderball has fun, it's a big adventure, even if it doesn't really quite measure up to the other films within the series. Unfortunately, the bad guy in this film, Emilio Largo, played here by Adolphe Celi, will never go down as one of the greatest Bond villains in history. And Claudine Auger tries her best here playing Domino. She's incredibly beautiful, but just really lacks the acting chops to keep up with Sean Connery. As I say, there's nothing particularly wrong with this film. It just doesn't stand out within the James Bond series, nor is it one of the best James Bond films with Sean Connery starring. And it's one of those James Bond films that will just sort of leave you wanting more. Entertaining, thrilling, but maybe not quite living up to the normal James Bond heights. Thunderball gets a 7 out of 10.